Welcome. All right. Welcome to our podcast tonight on Stand Up, Stand Out America with yours truly, La Conservadora Tejana, Bianca Gracia. Today, joining me, I have found a jewel deep down in South Texas who has now authored a book. I have met this wonderful, wonderful professor lady down in South Texas years back, Amy Frazier. And I just want to welcome you to our show tonight on Stand Up, Stand Out America. I just thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk about your new book. It caught my attention. And I just felt, I was like, South Texas is obviously, very, it's like a piece of my heart. My grandmother is buried in Far. I have relatives all up and down the border, and so anyhow, it's just, I do a lot of outreach and engagement down there, evangelical pastors. I've done a lot of grassroots work down there. So it's a very, unique place for me. Like I said, a piece of my heart. So Amy, I saw something online and it was, the book title stood out to me. And then I've met you before. So I was like, I've got to talk to her about what's going on. She's written a book. So proud to have you join us tonight. So Amy, this is the first time, obviously, you've been on our show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell my audience, who you are, what you're doing, and obviously tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Bianca. I'm deeply honored to introduce myself a little. Not only a published author, but university professor in the Writing and Language Studies department, a senior lecturer, a real estate licensed realtor as well. And I also mentor a group of students passionate about creative writing at the university called Authors Corner, and from the Mathematics and Science Academy. And I help them I coach and mentor them to write their short stories, and then we get their stories published in our university newspaper called The Writer. And if they volunteer, they can read and record their stories in our Vaquero radio. We have a radio station there at the university. So I'm very involved with writing and helping students in the creative aspect of writing. I've been teaching composition and literature there at the university for about 29 years. So this book, Brujeria in South Texas. Yes, my publisher is Austin Macaulay, and it's been released in over 25 countries since.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Well, it sounds fantastic, but I hope somebody picks up the book and reads it in those countries. I've stopped counting about a month ago. The last country that I saw this book being released was in Slovenia about a month ago, and that's where Melania Trump was born and grew up. So wow, that's really amazing.
That's an accomplishment, Amy. Congratulations.
Thank you. I hope that it's classified as a thriller, and I've seen in bookstores and throughout all these countries, they classify this book as a thriller. So wow, I'm really amazed. And I'm not anywhere in the same category as Stephen King and Dean Koontz. They're multimillionaires and they write novels, but you got to start somewhere. And so this book is based upon actual events of someone that I've known for over 40 years. It's a composite of people that I know, research that I've done, testimonials, and whistleblowers that I've heard from people who have survived the satanical ritual abuse of children, and I mean, they have something to say. And I never thought I would write something like this, but I put it all kind of together, and it all fit together in the right places. Mm-hmm. So from the standpoint of literature, having being the fact that I've taught literature over the years at the university, I'd like to mention that this is a book that is a piece of art that imitates life.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This is a juxtaposition of polar opposite archetypes in literature, there's the Christ figure, and there's also the Antichrist figure that you see in this book.
Right.
And the Christ figure, maybe if you remember, Bianca, as many have in high school, we were assigned, I think, usually in our senior year to read Beowulf.
Yes.
The epic. And I taught Beowulf numerous times. And I've seen, after analyzing and lecturing Beowulf, that Beowulf actually is a Christ figure because he makes a personal self-sacrifice to leave south of Sweden. He's a Geat to cross over into Denmark to help King Hrothgar slay Grendel, the monster who's been attacking and killing many of King Hrothgar's subjects, the people that live there, in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a Christ-like figure does, is that he willingly makes personal self-sacrifices to reach out and help others. And he knows, Beowulf knows that he exists in a dying society. He knows that his society will become extinct in his lifetime or soon after, and he never gives up. He never gives up. Even after he becomes king, when he returns back to South Sweden, he's a Geat. Sometimes it's pronounced Geat, but it's spelled Geat. He rules for 50 years, and then circumstances occur where a dragon is released and threatens the lives of everybody in his kingdom. And the younger thanes or warriors willingly volunteer to slay the dragon, but Beowulf says, no, I'll do it. Even though he's an old man,
Mm-hmm.
He willingly sacrifices himself for the benefit of, his kingdom, for others. And in this book, we see that in Father Andrew. He's a Christ-like figure, a Christ figure,
Right.
who willingly sacrifices himself to save the life of Isabella, who's a protagonist in this story. And I wrote it as fiction, but I know she changed names, known her for over 40 years. And when she told me about what happened to her, this incredible story, I asked if I could write about her, but I didn't know it was going to snowball. And what I'd like to point out about the two archetypes, how they're complete opposites. You see that there are Christ-like figures in Isabella, her best friend, Bob, and Father Andrew, where they willingly make personal self-sacrifices for the love that they have for family or friends or neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the opposite, the polar opposite archetype of the Antichrist figure, and that would be the witches. There are three witches involved, and Satan himself, the man in black, and Satan himself.
Wow.
Where they're not willing to make personal self-sacrifices. They have that narcissistic attitude of like, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? It's me, and not willing to make personal self-sacrifices. So it's amazing to see how, even in our own society, because I think that this book reflects society, that there are people, individuals like you and I know, family, friends, who are willing to make personal self-sacrifices. And then there are others that are complete opposite.
So I am eager to read your book, number one. I grew up in South Texas, and like I said, the title caught my eye because growing up in South Texas, brujeria is pretty much, it's in the household. Almost every Hispanic household knows about brujeria. And there's some households, and I will say, I have those personal experiences, but also people that I know that, they rely on brujeria. They think brujeria is somehow, they look to it as, oh, well, I'm going to a healer. I need to go light my candles. I need to do this to protect myself, and so it's a mentality. It's a whole lifestyle. It's the way they live. Right. It's interesting because a lot of Catholics practice brujeria and they don't find anything wrong with it. They think it's okay. I'm not saying all Catholics, but I'm saying a lot of Catholics do practice the brujeria. They don't understand. They think that, oh my gosh, but if I turn on this candle, if I do this brujeria, if I do this, I don't know, ritual thing. They do rituals, you know, crazy things like boil something in a pot, go throw it around your house. I don't know, cut your hair, burn it up. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, and so they believe that that heals them or whatever it is that their mission is, right? You know, there's it goes as far as the santeria, you know, like, oh, you know, curses on law enforcement to prevent from them coming to get you kind of thing. It's a whole
Hmm.
lifestyle. And so this
Yeah,
caught my
yeah.
attention because of the testimonies. I mean, and I've known, and like I
Mhm.
said, grew up in South Texas. So I said, Brujeria in South Texas. I don't know if you know a friend of mine, but I won't mention his name right now, but he has a story too where he said, you know, he tells it all the, well, not all the time, but he'll tell it. And it happened in RGV. And so he was driving one day and he said this, he didn't know, he thought it was an old lady. He said she looked like she was lost. So he rolled down his window and this little old lady literally, you know, yelled at him and said, "You're going to die. You're going to die tonight." And he didn't realize that it was a witch. And so he got very, very ill.
Mhm.
He lost a lot of weight. He was near death. He really was near death. And he said, by the grace of the Lord, you know, he kept fighting back, and by the grace of the Lord, and he said, you know, Bianca, I don't know why they cursed me. I mean, I don't know why they were trying to curse me. I don't
Mhm.
know, you know, he just there was things, I mean, you know, if you're successful, whatever, they come and they curse you. I mean, your life can be in danger a lot of the times in these,
Mhm.
um uh areas where brujeria is practiced. And so this is why it caught my attention. I'm eager to read your book to find out about, what obviously, you say you were inspired, or to write it because of somebody's testimony and somebody, that you've known something has happened to that person. So brujeria is very dangerous. And I think I've tried to explain to people, like, there could be the white brujeria and then there's the black brujeria.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the white
No,
brujeria is
it's
not,
all dangerous. It's
it's
all
all
bad.
dangerous, exactly. But some
Yeah.
people justify the white brujeria because they
No,
say, "Oh,
no.
well, I was just trying to heal myself, or I was just trying to, do that." They think it doesn't hurt anything or anybody, and they think it's the only way to heal or whatever. It's a misconception, but it is all bad. So, without revealing, because I want people to, definitely go and buy your book and read it. I think this is extremely important if you want to know and learn about the South Texas culture. This is very, very much part of the South Texas culture. And so, without telling us too much, but if you can tell us a little bit about what the story, is about, a little bit about it. Don't tell us the ending or anything, but just tell us a little bit about, and leave us on a cliffhanger to make sure that people come and read your book.
That's why this book is classified as a thriller. It's a page turner, and it does end in a cliffhanger. So, I'm hoping that it generates enough interest with the readers and the audience that they want me to write another book. And I'm in the process of interviewing the priest who I've never met. But it's a remarkable story of a friend that I've known for many, many years. We're both Catholics, her and I, and we've heard of witchcraft, brujeria, but we never really paid any attention to it. We didn't grow up in households that practiced it, but we had very strong work ethics. She's a very hard worker. She comes from a family that were pillars of the community in Los Fresnos. Oops. And I'm an Army brat. I mean, I never lived here in the Valley until my dad retired from the Army, and I met her soon after we moved here, and we've been friends ever since. Then circumstances happened along the years where we kind of lost touch with one another, but we were brought together back again after a few years, and she told me this incredible story. Had it been anybody else, I wouldn't believe it, okay? But her, I know her. And we can pick up, even if we haven't talked in a few years, the moment we talk, it's like yesterday, because we have that kind of bond and connection. And so very much like me, she, I mean, she didn't know much about witchcraft. She didn't occupy herself with it or think about it, or it is an interesting topic, but we're busy with life, and jobs and work and responsibilities and things like that. And she was a very hard worker, earned like awards for Women of the Year in the Valley. And had it been, if it had been anybody but her, I would have just kind of doubted it. But from her, no, I don't. And this topic of brujeria or witchcraft, I wrote it at the local level, but also all the way to the top echelon. It's something that's practiced worldwide. You know, I mean, we're like little pawns down here with the witchcraft down here, and there's various degrees of experienced witches, but it's practiced all the way up to the very top levels of Satanism. I mean, these are all people that worship Satan in one way or another.
Yeah.
I remember listening to an interview by Dr. Dr. Holiday. She's a deliverance minister and has written over 50 books about these topics. You can find her books in Amazon. Dr. Julie Holiday, I believe. And she says essentially what happens when a witch casts a spell, she or he, a warlock, and there are actually 3 witches in this book. It's 2 women and a man who is a warlock, and they do it for money. You know, they do it for power, and people will strike a deal with the devil for wealth and fame and power, and sell their souls, to Satan.
Yeah.
From the lowest level up to the top level. But Satan always comes back, for, okay, it's payment time. And that brief moment of power and wealth and fame is very brief. They think it's worth it, but it's not lasting. And they don't think about the consequences. But Dr. Judy Holiday said that when a witch casts a spell, which he or he is essentially doing, he's conjuring a demon to go and deliver the curse and the spell to the target, the victim, right? And then she says, now the world of witchery, they have their own rules. So if a witch sends a demon to cast a curse or a spell to their intended target, the demon will go. And when he reaches a certain point, now, if the individual is living a life of grace with God, there is an invisible barrier of protection from God that the demon doesn't realize until he gets close enough. And then when he gets close enough, and I know, because I don't know if you've ever heard of John Ramirez. He's author of numerous books.
Oh, I know him.
Okay, I met him in person. He was the 3rd most powerful Satanist in New York City.
Yes.
Now I'm going to get back to him in just a minute, but and he knows.
Oh yeah.
But these witches that don't know, they're not experienced enough. They think they can go ahead and wield all kinds of hexes and curses and whatnot to individuals without, paying the consequences. And they go ahead and they do this, and they conjure up these demons to go do their dirty work. So these demons will go, and when they get close enough to the intended target, if the person is living a state of grace, living a life of righteousness with God. I mean, not perfect, but a sinner like all of us, but really, truly living a life right with Christ.
Yes.
He is surrounded by protection.
Yes.
So when the demon gets close enough and he sees, this person is protected by God, he cannot. And this is what John Ramirez experienced when he was a Satanist. He cannot pass that invisible barrier, but he has to complete the curse.
That's right.
So that he turns around, he goes back to the witch who summoned him. And in the world of witchery, the curse is cast back to the witch, not 7 times worse, like stated in the Bible. In their world, it's 10 times worse. Right. And that's what happens to the warlock at the end of the story. Now, my friend, she didn't know. Now, her best friend, Bonnie, she suspected and said, hey, we got to do something about this. You're getting sick. In actuality, she was in ICU twice. She almost died twice. But in the story, I wrote it once, because it's a novelette. And it's in chapter 8 when when Father Andrew, not Prince Andrew, Father Andrew, he knows what's going on. He knows what he needs to do. So Isabella is in ICU. She's in her deathbed. Okay. She's got a 50-50 chance of surviving because of all these curses that have been cast on her. And, it's rendered her, very, very sick. She's on her deathbed, and Father Andrew knows what he needs to do. So he goes over there, and the anointing of the sick, he's performing last rites or unction. And as that's happening, he hears a voice. And it's the voice of, now it doesn't directly state, but when you read carefully enough, it is Satan talking to him. And so he's praying for Isabella. At the same time, he's hearing this voice. And then at the same time as well, he's having visions of his mother when he was a little boy. So this is going on at the same time in chapter 8.
Yeah.
And he's praying the rosary in Latin. By the way, I pray the rosary in Latin, all 4 mysteries every day in Latin. And it's according to Father Chat Ribberger, stop me if you anytime this.
No.
Consciousness. Father Chat Ribberger is one of the leading exorcists here in this country. And also, if you ever hear testimonials from Jesse Romero, he's an LA cop, a retired LA cop.
Yes, I know him. I know him well as well. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Right. Well, you know that he has assisted many priests who have performed exorcisms, exorcists over the decades. And I've heard from him, testimonials from him, from Father Chat Rittberger, during exorcisms, that over the decades, that these demons that possess the bodies of these people reveal that the most powerful prayer in the world is the rosary. And especially if you say to any one of the 3 anointed languages, Latin, Hebrew, or Greek, because those were the 3 languages that were inscribed on top of the cross the day that Jesus was crucified.
That's right.
So I thought, wow, when I heard that first from Jesse Romero, I said, I got to learn how to pray the rosary in Latin.
Yes. And Jesse Romero, Amy, is in Arizona now.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I met him at a Catholics for Catholics event in Arizona that I went to. So yeah, but I know him. I know him well. He has a podcast. Very, very knowledgeable man. So he knows exactly, very, very knowledgeable man. So this is a reality. When you talk about this, about this is something, again, in that growing up in South Texas, I think I'm very familiar with the topic because, there was even, this is why I'm telling you that the title caught my attention, because there was a time in my life, and I think I have like a little drag. I don't know. Can you tell that I on my end, I feel like I'm getting, am I freezing up or anything on your end?
No. I don't see you freezing. No,
okay.
no.
Well, that's good. That's good to know, because on my end, I feel like there's a lag, but that's okay. So, but Amy, so that there was a time in my life where I got really sick, and I didn't, and I didn't have anything wrong with me. I kept going to the doctor, and I was, they did everything, scans, they did everything, blood work, everything. There was nothing wrong with me, but yet in my head, I felt like I was going crazy or something. There was something wrong with me, and I just couldn't function. And so, growing up in South Texas, the first thing, your mom says is brujeria. Te hicieron brujeria. And I'm like, Mom, I don't even live in South Texas anymore. And so she's like, no, we have to go see somebody. We have to go see somebody. And so, of course, you listen to your mom. And so I remember she took me to somebody, right, that was a curandera, but again, still in the witchcraft whole thing, right? I didn't know any better. I mean, I was young, and I was really sick. I was really, really sick. I wasn't in ICU or anything like that, but I was really sick. And so, granted, I went to see this person, and this person, I don't know, did whatever they do. And they told my mother, they said they've done, they've done brujeria on her. And I'm thinking, what? And so, I'm not trying to believe it, right? And so anyway, she says, I want you to do these 3 things, and you're going to break this hex, right? And I'm thinking, okay. So she tells me, of course, there's prayer involved. So it's not like I'm going to do anything. There's prayer involved. You got to do, you got to do something. You got to like ask God, for things. You got to pray to some saint. I mean, like, there's like all these things that she tells me I got to do these things, right? And she's like, she's like, and then she's like, it's something like crazy. I don't remember. It was like, you're going to take these 3 eggs with you on the way home. And, you're going to like, pray and toss the eggs, as you're, out the window or whatever. And I'm thinking, what? Like, this is insane.
Yes.
But let me tell you. And she said, you will know who did this to you. And so I said, okay. So sure enough, I said, well, what do I got to lose, right? That I'm young. I don't know. My mom's like, you have to do these things and you better be praying and you're driving home and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, what do I got to lose? I really was ill. I was like ill. There was something wrong with me. I'm telling you. And so I did. I was like praying on my way home, and there I was like a crazy person. I'm get these eggs, right? And I'm like, okay, God, do your work. And I'm like throwing the eggs, praying, and then throw the egg out. And then the last egg I threw out, right? And I'm like, okay, God, this is in your hands, heal me, I'm doing these, and so anyway, literally my phone rings and I wasn't going to answer it. And it was someone I knew very well, very well. And this person called, and I had asked this person knew that I was not feeling well, because I knew her very well. And I had asked this person, hey, I'm not feeling well. Do you know anybody I can go talk to or something? And she's like, oh, no, don't know anybody. I was like, but you used to have somebody that you could go, these curanderas or whatever. You used to talk about somebody or whatever. No. We don't talk to that person. Well, when that person called me that day, as I was praying on my way home, I was like, what does this person want right now? And so I answered the phone, and her first words were like, oh my God, I had to call you and tell you I went to go see so-and-so, the person she claimed they didn't see no more or talk to. She's like, and I had to tell you all these things. And I knew right immediately right there. And I said, son of a biscuit, if I wouldn't have known any better. The person who was literally doing brujeria on me was a person that I knew. They were so like jealous of my life that they were literally putting hexes on me through this witch that they saw. And from that moment on, I cut that person out of my life, never have spoken to that person ever again in my entire life. And I learned, and I said, this stuff is real. Like, this stuff is real, Amy. Obviously it exists. I'm glad you're writing about it. If you're not grounded in God, you're exactly right, and you don't understand why something isn't right. Something you were like, what is all this blockage all over the place, or why am I sick, or why am I this, or why am I that? You have to begin to think, okay, there is evil people out here in this world. There is evil people, and if you're not grounded in the Lord, the attacks come and you don't even know what is wrong with you. You have no idea, because these people are evil. We're living in a world right now, and you hear it all the time. There's I do a lot in politics, Amy. I do a lot in politics, and people say, in the political realm, we are past the R and the D. We are now living in evil versus good, period.
Yeah.
End of story. Evil versus good. No D, no R. Forget about any of that. It's evil versus good. And so I hear it all the time. And, I've heard people within the evangelical movement that say, we're dealing with warlocks, we're dealing with principalities. And you think, what in the world? Like, we don't run around talking like this on a normal basis. We just don't, because
No.
it's not like you said, people are busy, they're raising their kids, they go to work, they're doing their normal life. So you don't really think about, you know what I'm saying? You don't really think about This is not on the first thing that you wake up to, right? And so people need to be prayed up. People need to be grounded with the Lord. They have to have a relationship. It's not just about going to church on Sunday for 1 hour, 2 hours, it doesn't matter. It's not about going to church one day out of the week and that's it. Your job is done. No, it is about building a relationship with God, because like you said, John Ramirez talks about it. The enemy knows when you're protected. They know, because you have a relationship with the Lord, and the Lord will not let anyone touch you. They won't let anyone near you, because they know Holy Spirit's around. They know. And there's so many people out there that do not realize this is a reality. And this is why this was when I'm telling you, when I saw your book, I was like, I got to read this book, because this is a reality. I've lived it. I know tons of people who have testimonies on these things, that they've endured things, they've gone through things, they've lived through things. Some people didn't live through it, Amy. Some people didn't live through it, and they probably died not even knowing what they were really battling. Because, sometimes these people you don't really realize, and you think that you're ill, but then the doctors can't find anything on you. And then you just end up dying because you stress your body or whatever. I mean, whatever it is, but you end up dying, and people they go, oh, well, they died of whatever, they kind of make up something, heart attack, stroke. I don't know. They'll come up with whatever they categorize you as dying from. This is a reality. There is an evil and a good. There are people that we're fighting. This is an important topic, and I'm glad that you've written a book about it. It's kind of funny how they call it a thriller, right? It is a thriller. Whatever it takes. Listen, you want to call it a thriller, that's fine, whatever it takes. But the fact that you've written this book about somebody's testimony is super important. And I think that everybody, whether they're within our culture or not in our culture, they need to know that this is a reality that we are fighting, regardless. There's God and there's Satan. And, just like God has his angels doing work, Satan also has his warlocks and his witches doing work. And so very real. Is very,
Yeah,
very
right.
Yeah. So
Whether people believe in God or Satan or not, Satan really likes to have people prefer to have people not believe in him, because then he can manipulate them. He can deceive them easier if they don't believe in him. But whether they believe in him or not, if God exists, then the opposite exists. If angels exist, then the opposite exists. And we're all created with the freedom of will to choose which side we want to be on.
that's right.
And what's remarkable about the story is that Father Henry, you don't know, that this is like, you don't know at the beginning. We see the beginning starts with Isabel, the protagonist. And what happens, she's a hardworking woman. Everybody admires her, but like what happened to you, there's somebody envious and jealous of her, and she didn't know. And it took her best friend, to tell her, hey, I suspect Brujeria. And, and Isabella doesn't know what to make of it. It's never happened to her before. She didn't grow up in that kind of environment, even though she knew about it and heard about it like we do down here in South Texas. She never really experienced it firsthand and within her family. Neither did I. Mm-hmm. But I mean, now she's a true believer, okay, because it happened to her. And she, like I said earlier, she not only nearly died once, she was in ICU twice. And the book only wrote that she was in ICU once. And the priest is, I wrote it as fiction, but the priest was the parish priest who helped her. And ironically, I want to know his story. He grew up with a mother who was a practicing witch.
Wow.
How did that happen? That he grew up with a mother that was a practicing witch, and he turned, I suppose he's an independent thinker, that he saw for himself the difference between right and wrong, whether taught by his mother or not, or influences outside his family. But he gave his life, he dedicated his life to Christ and became a priest, a Catholic priest. I don't know the whole story behind that, but I do know that he was willing, he's a Christ figure, or Christ-like figure. He was willing to make personal sacrifices to help Isabella, and his prayers and his commitment and devotion to Christ and his faith and love in God helped pull Isabella out of her deathbed. I mean, she survived.
Wow.
And then at the end of the story, without really giving it away, this is when she finds out for real the revelation, because the last witch introduces himself to her and who he is and what he did, and he goes there to introduce himself to her, to let her know what actually happened, but with an ulterior motive. He doesn't go there with a contrite heart, that he's
Right.
sorry for what he did to her.
Right.
Because, as I said earlier, from the interview I heard years ago from Dr. I think it's Pat Holliday, okay, who wrote all these books. She was a deliverance minister, that in the world of witches, if you cast a spell on a true believer who's protected by God, it goes back to the witch 10 times worse, and that's what happened to him. There was an ulterior motive, not only to, apologize for what he did, but the only way to break the curse, because he's dying, is to ask her for forgiveness.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens. Well, speaking of in my situation, when I, after that was all said and done for me, it was like night and day. All of a sudden, whatever was over me was gone. I was no longer sick. I didn't feel like I was, and the person described it. She described it to me. She said, "Do you feel like you're like a little gerbil running around in a cage, that you're just going in circles and circles?" And I'm like, yeah, I guess that is how I feel. Like I don't understand it. And it was night and day, night and day. Luckily now, I mean, I wasn't like super grounded in my faith back then. I was young. I didn't, I mean, I was a practicing Catholic at the time. And so, but I've, now, I mean, I'm a firm believer. I'm like, a real, I've learned that, that building a relationship with the Lord is really what saves me, gives me grace, mercy, and everything. It's knowing who he is, being grounded in his word, knowing how to protect myself.
Yes.
And now, that I know the difference, right? Because, in this Hispanic culture, you do have this brujeria, this like South Texas, it's known for this.
That's prevalent.
I had something, most recently that happened, and it wasn't as like this at all. But it was a situation. But because I know so many pastors and I run around with a lot of the evangelicals, prayer warrior, I have a prayer closet. I mean, I am, I love the Lord. And my walk is much, much different now. I'm in a spiritual walk. I've been, definitely baptized with Holy Spirit. It's amazing the relationship that I have with the Lord, and just, just to be loved by him unconditionally, even as the sinner, right? That we're all sinners, and so to be loved by him unconditionally. But I will tell you that this now I know the difference. I don't have to go to someone like a curandera or the witches or the brujerias. I don't have to do that, because I know who God is now. And I know that there is word in his scripture that I can cast out any of this. I have the authority through the Holy Spirit. And that's why Jesus had to die. He said, "You will do greater things than I." And so I had a situation, and I went to this pastor and I said, he knows the Bible like really like the back of his hand. I'm still not there yet. And I said, "Pastor, this was said to me, and I don't want to believe it." And he said, "You don't have to." And I'm like, "Okay." Okay, well, he says, "Because it's in scripture." So he goes and he says, "Remember when, and I can't remember who is the person now in the Bible, but he says, "Remember when so and so he's a prophet, and he goes and he and a prophet comes and tells him, 'Hey, you're going to die. You're going to die. That's it.'" And the prophet says, I mean, the guy says, "Oh, He faces the brick wall and he says, "No, I will not die." So he tells the Lord, he's like, "God, I've done everything you asked me to do. I am not going to die, and I will not die. And I rebuke that." And, and he pretty much holds God, on his word. And he says, because you say this in your word. And so you read the scripture and I'm like, so God says, okay, you know what? You're right. Oh, you held my word against me. You knew my word and you knew how to use it. You held it against me. So for that, you're not going to die. So the prophet told you that you would die, but you're not going to die. I'm going to give you 15 more years or whatever it was. So the Lord granted him 15 more years. So it's in the Bible. And the pastor said, you don't have to accept any of this. You can go back and say, God, but you say in your word here, XYZ, and therefore, no, I don't accept this, I don't accept that, and I don't accept any of what these people say, because they're not God, you're God. And I'm gonna hold your word to it. And so I was like, wow. So again, that was in his word. You just got to learn his word, know how to use his word, and Satan can't come near you. He just can't. They can't come near you. These witches, they can cast what they can do, try to do whatever they want to do, and all it's going to do is just bounce right back and go back at them. And like you said, it'll go back at them 10 times harder. Why? Because we're protected by the Lord. But you got to be grounded with the Lord. So this is yeah, this is a important. I mean, this is such an important topic. I am I'm so glad that you not only have written about it, but that you've come on here to actually talk about it. I think it's important. I think that people in our culture need to really hear about this. I think we're in a very deep spiritual battle in this country.
Oh, yes.
And so I think it's important to understand, maybe this will help people wake up and realize, the spiritual battle that we are in, as practicing people of faith, we think that because we go to church and we, like you pray the rosary, that we have a prayer closet, whatever it is, we think that's enough. And it's not always enough. You always have to know your enemy. You have to know your enemy so that you know how to detect them and how to know. Now, I've gone to a point where I'm like, Satan, I'm like, you're so, I tell Satan all, I'm like, you're the dumbest person. First of all, you're so repetitive. You try to disguise yourself in a different way. I see you coming 10 blocks away. Like, not going to happen. I already see you. Stop. Because he just continues to do the same thing over and over, but he just tries to do it. He dresses it up maybe in a slightly different way, but it's the same thing. I'm like, really? So it's like, I find myself calling out Satan. I'm like, yeah, not going to work. I see you coming a block away, mile away, whatever. And I'm like, and I think it's important for people to understand, this, how real this brujeria is and how prominent it is in the South Texas area. I mean, if you walk into a Hispanic household in South Texas, you see candles lit, you see all kinds of, you can tell there's ritual stuff in their house. There's ritual stuff around their yard. You automatically know if you know what you're looking for. You don't know what you're looking for, you're never going to know. You'll just think, oh, that's their decorations or something. No, it's not decorations. You have to identify these things. So I'm glad that you're bringing light to a subject that is probably not very much talked about at all. And so I'm glad you've written about it in a book.
Yes.
Yeah. So Amy, let me ask you, where, I know it's inspired you. You're doing great work. One of the things is, where can people buy the book? I'm going to completely say you've got to read this book, whether you live in South Texas or not. No, this is now in all these countries. Guys, you got to buy this book and read about it so that you understand evil versus good, period. End of story. So Amy, where can they find your book?
You just type in my name. As you see, I think you can see it at the bottom of the screen.
Amy Frazier.
Amy Sierra Frazier. In any search engine, and Brujeria in South Texas, in any search engine, whether it's Chrome or Google or what's the other one? Bing, any of them. Okay. It'll show up. It's sold everywhere. Well, I can't say everywhere, but in many places. In Amazon, Austin McCalling, my publishers from New York City. Where else? Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, all over eBay. Gosh, it's thrift book, I think, store. It just,
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's available pretty much everywhere and anywhere as long as they can just type in your name and find it.
yes, online. If they can type it in, my name and the title of the book online, I think in any search engine, because I've looked through all the various different search engines, and it's there, it's available. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I didn't realize that it was going to be released in other countries. I was not told that by the publishers, that it would be released here in the United States and the UK. And I thought, oh, that's great. That's fantastic. But within a week after its release, the release date, and get this, the release date was, November the 30th, 2022, last year. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. 2022, November the 30th. And I didn't know this, but Father Andrew in this book, he's a Christ figure, right? He
Mm-hmm.
willingly sacrifices his life to rescue Isabella. Well, the release date, November the 30th, 2022, is the feast day of St. Andrew.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
I mean, is that a coincidence or what?
No, there's no coincidence. There's God incidences.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
So yeah, I'm just within a week after its release date, the first non-speaking country I saw it released in a bookstore online was Denmark. And then numerous stores in Denmark, Germany, all the English-speaking countries, all throughout the Western Europe. Of course, I mentioned earlier Slovenia, where Melania Trump was born, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Estonia. I mean, countries I've hardly ever known very little about,
this is
India.
this is amazing for a Latina, professor, and you've written a book and you're in all these countries is a phenomenal accomplishment. I mean, congratulations. I'm so glad that I met you, years back. I know we've had, some great conversations in the past. And kudos to you because, we need people like you in universities. We need people like you teaching, the importance of English and writing. I mean, we need some good writers and Latina writers. We don't have that
And we
many.
do have them. We do have them. As an educator, professor, I look around and I see many of today's, youth and generations with
Mhm.
such talent here into South Texas. We need to be acknowledged from down here. I mean,
Yes.
it's usually bad news down here,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
like the poorest region of the country, but
Yes.
there's a lot to offer. There's a lot of young, talented people of all ages that have so much to offer and contribute to our society. And it'd just be nice to acknowledge a few people down here,
That's
so
awesome. Well, maybe this is what you're doing. You're breaking the barrier open so that other young writers can also, you can help them along the way so that they can become published. And also, this region
yes,
can be known for something other than obviously all the illegals coming across. I know you're in that region. That is a hot topic right now. Can you comment on is it as bad as what the news is, telling us that it's bad? Are you being affected by it? You're, obviously a professor down there in the RGV. Can you say how you feel about that? This is, like I said, a very hot topic right now. I'm wearing my National Border Patrol hat because I support the Border Patrol agents and all of law enforcement agencies that are out there trying to do the best that they can with the resources that they have.
Well, I teach at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and we're spread out. We have the Brownsville campus is where I'm from. I live in Brownsville, and then we have the Edinburgh campus over there, and then in between some of it in Harlingen. So our campus in Brownsville is right across the border from Matamoros, where we get the influx of the caravans of people that are trying to cross the border and all of that crazy stuff that we heard a couple of weeks ago. Was it a week ago?
Yes.
When somebody ran into, a
7
group of
Venezuelans.
Yes, yes, that was horrible. That took place here in Brownsville. And teaching there at the campus over the years, I have many students from across, that cross the border every day, back and forth. There's many from across. They bring their children to be educated in American schools, but in private schools, not public schools, private schools. So there's a lot of transport back and forth, right? And I have many students that are from across. I've asked them since, in the cartels and the shootouts, we have experience where they've had shootouts in the past, not recently, but in the past, a few years ago, where they had conflict between cartels there in Matamoros during shootouts in the middle of the day, where the bullets have crossed the border and into our campus. And we've had to close down school. That's how close we are. That's how close we are to the border. School is over. It was over a week ago. I haven't, heard from my students about what's going on with the caravan of immigrants or illegals that are trying to cross the border. I live maybe about 5 miles away from the border, but in this neighborhood, I haven't really seen that much action going on. I haven't really heard too much about it. And maybe kind of like Brujeria, people down here are, closed-mouthed about it. But I can tell you that my students from Matamoros that come across, I ask them from time to time, what's it like living over there? And do you experience the shootouts? And they kind of take it with a grain of salt. They're kind of like used to it. And it's kind of died down and tamed down with the shootouts the past several years. I mean, what can they do? They just have to make the best of it. But it used to be in the old days, many of us from over here on the American side, we'd go across the Matamoros because they have more of everything, restaurants, entertainment, stores and stuff like that. But since, they've had conflict between different cartels there and shootouts, we haven't gone there very recently. But I don't know if I answered your question about the immigrants coming over, but what happened about a week or two ago, that was, nobody wishes that, even illegals, that's horrible.
I think that maybe you're not probably, seeing anything where you live, or you're not, really getting hit hard, because they're coming across, they're actually being bussed. They get taken to a center, they get processed, and they're being bussed out and flown out. They're not staying in Brownsville. They're not staying there. They're all going somewhere, because they come through and then they say, where are you going? They say DC, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, wherever it is they're going, North Carolina, Georgia, wherever. They'll tell people where they're going, and
Wow.
and so you're not probably having to deal with it a whole lot there, because they're being bussed and flown to wherever they're going.
Right.
On our tax dollars, mind you, but that's what they're doing. And so, so it's a very hot topic. Our organization has been very much against illegal immigration, by all means, and so there's a right way to come to this country, and it should be respected.
Absolutely.
And it's not, and so, I hear these stories about people being found dead, on ranch properties, all through South Texas, and stash houses or whatever. And I'm like, okay, why would you put yourself through that, knowing that you're coming on a dangerous journey? This is why you don't want to do illegal immigration. You want to try to legally come here so that you can, come here the right way and not be left behind, murdered, left to starve to death, sold into slavery, whatever the case may be.
Yes, it's horrible.
And, these women and children are being raped to get here. I mean, it's not worth it for that. And so when people, tell me, well, you're just not compassionate, Bianca, with these illegals, I'm like, no, I'm very compassionate. I'm compassionate because of what they're experiencing to get here. They shouldn't be raped, murdered, left to die, used, sold into slavery, all to come here. So that's what I speak up for, and so
Right.
shouldn't be treated that way. That's inhumane. And nobody wants to talk about it, and nobody wants, they want to just focus on it's the poor people trying to find jobs. It's not all that. This is by design, and they're, hurting people, and they're hurting children, and they're hurting women, and they're hurting this country. And so, bravery for you to have to live through all that. You're right at the forefront of it. But hey, listen, there's good things coming out of South Texas too. This is why I wanted to make sure that I featured you tonight, because people need to know that there is other things happening in the RGV other than just illegal
Thank
immigration,
you.
right?
Yes.
And
Thank
so,
you.
so we've got an author, and it's a Latina, and I just am so proud of you. I'm going to order my book, and I want to definitely read it. You've touched a nerve with me, and I like that you say that you left it on a cliffhanger, because that means that hopefully we will see another, maybe a series of it, or you'll continue to write. Maybe you will empower people who have had to deal with this to come forward and say, I have a story to tell. And they don't want to talk about it. Maybe it was a scary thing that they've had to deal with. This is not oh, I just went to the store and got robbed. No, this is a serious thing that could have caused you to die, or you've lost a loved one because of witchcraft.
This friend of mine that told me about her experience, I mean, it traumatized her so much, she didn't even tell her family member, her younger sister, because she was afraid her younger sister couldn't handle this. So she kept it from her sister. And I mean, such an incredible story, but yeah, people are afraid sometimes to speak up because they're afraid maybe it's going to backfire, and she did experience a few other episodes afterwards, but I think it's her close faith and love for God, and serving him. Again, she is also a Christ figure, like Father Andrew, willing to sacrifice herself to help others, to reach out to others, to shine the light of God's love and power, through her to others. And one more thing I'd like to say, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. In chapter 8, when Father Andrew is performing the unction, the last rites on Isabella, and all of this is happening, he hears Satan's voice on one side, he's having visions of his mother, and at the end of the chapter, you see that she is a witch, she's a practicing witch, and so then you have to read chapter 9, the serpent seed, to see what happens. But it turns out, when we read in chapter 9, that Father Andrew is a descendant of the 13 tribes of the serpent seed, who is Satan. Okay. And there's a story of these people who actually believe that they are descendants of Eve and Satan. I'm saying I believe it, but the research that I've done and I've heard and read and all this, they believe it. And as long as they serve him, then their power and wealth will remain intact from generation to generation to generation. So Father Andrew is an offspring. He's a descendant of one of the 13 tribes, which is a mockery against the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yes.
There's that opposite, that polar opposite. Right. I'd like to emphasize that this book offers hope to anybody. I mean, that doesn't give people the green light or free reign to be evil and remain evil, but even somebody like Father Andrew, who grew up with a mother who was a practicing witch and a Satanist. Wow. Look at John Ramirez. Wow. John Ramirez grew up in that. Everybody's born. God created all of us with the freedom of will to choose, and he chose. He's an independent thinker. When you read the indoctrination, The Cage Within the Cave, that's chapter 10, chapter 11. Just unbelievable. The torture, the pain and suffering that these children are made to experience at a very young age. And what Father Andrew experienced, and others like him, they're survivors of the satanic ritual abuse, children of, and this is going on. This is a story within a story that takes place not only at the local level, but up, like I said before, to the top echelon of these very, very powerful elite people who believe that as long as they maintain or they worship Satan, they're going to maintain their power and wealth. But he chose freely to go to rebel against the rebellious who rebelled against God, and he chose freely to serve God. And so he doesn't believe the lies that he hears from Satan when he's there in front of Isabella in ICU, when he says, you're irredeemable. Because we find out in chapter 9 that Father Andrew is one of the descendants of the 13 tribes of the serpent seed.
Wow.
So there are people out there that are lost souls. There are people out there that think that there's no hope. You've got to have hope that even somebody like John Ramirez, who was the third most powerful Satanist in New York City,
Yes.
like Father Andrew, who grew up in this type of environment, you know, they turned their lives around.
Yes.
There is always hope of salvation for anyone, no matter which family, what background you come from.
Yes.
You know, you turn your life over to God. He's an unlimited power, not the one down there that has a limited power,
Yes.
but an unlimited power that loves you, like you said earlier, unconditionally. And it's a powerful message of hope to anybody, because there's a lot of people that are in despair, depressed. They've lost hope. No, there's so much. There's so much to look forward to. To live a life of grace with God is the most beautiful life in the whole world.
Amen.
And to live for Him and to serve Him and to serve others for the benefit of God, it's a beautiful life. And so it's not a book about witchcraft. Actually, a practicing witch messaged me and said, oh, he saw the title of my book and he couldn't wait to read my book and compare notes, that he had a huge following of over 62,000 people in his TikTok account of all these curses and spells and which, the little videos that he had. Oh my goodness. And his first name was Christian. Can you believe that? But that wasn't his handle name. Okay. But he said he couldn't wait to read this book and compare notes. He thought this was a book on how to become a witch. And it's not. It's the opposite. It's the eternal, I don't know, universal theme of the struggle between the forces of good and evil. It's a huge spiritual battle. And we really talk about it on a day-to-day, basis, because we get all bogged down with our jobs, our families, this and this and this and that. But it's very important that we have a daily bond relationship. There's bond and talking to God and praying to God and, back and forth daily, every day, at least 15, 20 minutes a day, if you can, because that's what He wants us to do. And it's a beautiful life.
Amen.
Amen.
You couldn't have said it or ended our show with a much more powerful message than that. I believe, Amy, that your book is going to, number one, help others come forward about their experience, and second of all, you could even maybe help some of those witches find hope that they could get out of it.
Yes, they can. Look at John Ramirez.
And
many like him. Yes, absolutely.
So that's awesome. That's amazing. So guys, you heard it tonight. Amy Frazier, you can type in her name on any of the search engines. Look for her book. I strongly suggest that you order it, read it, learn from it. This is things that happen in reality, and know the spiritual warfare that we are in, and know that good always wins versus the evil, and that there is still hope for all of you out there that are struggling through whatever it is that you're struggling. Amy, I can't wait to see what else you write and what else you publish. And I will be following up with you, because I'm going to read the book. I want to read the book, and I am I'm sure I'm going to put it down and go, I need to know more. So I applaud you. Thank you so much for spending the time and coming.
Thank you, Bianca. This is all for God. It's all for
Amen.
God. All the glory and praise and honor goes to Him. I'm just a vessel that He can use through me. It's not about me. It's about Him.
Amen.
And serving Him.
Inspiring words. Thank you so much, Amy, again, for coming on tonight on Stand Up.
Thank you, Bianca.
Guys, you know what to do. Let's support Amy Latina. All right. So we are, she's authored. And so please make sure you go and support her and definitely learn about this because it's real. So guys, as I always say, thank you so much and peace out this Friday night. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and Amy, have a blessed and wonderful weekend yourself. We thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you,